It's probably been a really long time since you've done any kind of division without a calculator. So I just want to remind you of the process. When you are dividing, we want to look and see, first of all, how many times does 23 just go into 42? And it will go one time. So remember, the first thing you do is divide. And then the second thing, we multiply 1 times 23. So we get 23. So the second step is to multiply. And then the third thing we did was subtract. But I'm going to say, instead of subtracting, we're going to change signs. And add. So if I change the sign to, so I'm going to change it to adding the opposite. So when I do that, I get 19. And then we bring down. So I would bring down the 1. And then we go back up and we cycle through this again. So we're going to divide. So 23 goes into 191, and you might try, guessing a few things. 9, it's not going to, 9 is going to be too big. It looks like it would be 8. And then after you divide, you multiply. We get 184. Then you would subtract or change it to the opposite. And well, here, it's okay, we'll just subtract. We're going to be doing it with polynomials in just a minute. And then you bring down. Then you go back up to the top and you divide. So 23 goes into 65 3 times. Then you multiply. Then you subtract. And then here we're done. There's nothing left to bring down. So notice what I say, write the remainder as a fraction. So I have 6 left over out of 23. So that's how I would write my answer. So hold that thought, because we are going to use that strategy for dividing polynomials. There's 2 things we're going to look at today. One of them is dividing a polynomial by a monomial. So in the numerator, I have a polynomial. Specifically, it's a trinomial because there's 3 terms, and it's in 2 variables. And notice in the denominator, this is a monomial. Remember, adding and subtracting is what sets off our terms. So the strategy for this is we are going to break apart this fraction. So we're going to separate and simplify. So what I mean by that is we're going to rewrite this as 5a squared b over 5ab. Oops. Minus 15ab cubed over 5ab plus 10a cubed b to the 4th over 5ab. So I'm separating this out. Remember, when you are adding or subtracting fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So really what I'm doing when I split it apart is I'm just going backwards from adding, because I had this common denominator here, so I split it apart. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the rules for exponents. The 5s, 5 divided by 5, that cancels out to a 1. This a cancels with one of these and leaves just a to the 1st power. And both of the b's cancel, so I'm left with just an a in that term. Here, 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 15 3 times. The a's will cancel, because when you divide something by itself, you get 1. Here, this b will cancel one of these and leave 2 factors of b in the numerator. You can use the exponent rule and subtract exponents if you want to. So now I have a 3b squared in the numerator and a 1 in the denominator, so I don't need to record that since it's in the denominator. Next, 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 2 times. This a cancels with one of these, leaves 2 factors of a in the numerator. This b cancels with one of these and leaves 3 factors of b in the numerator. So I end up with a plus 2a squared b cubed. Again, it's over 1, so I don't need it. So now this is my answer. I divided a polynomial by a monomial by splitting apart and simplifying. So here's a problem for you to practice. Go ahead and pause the video, practice this, get your answer, and then check to see if you're right. You should have gotten this answer B, and let me tell you though what sometimes happens. People get the answer A because they just cancel everything else out in this first term, and they forget that you're dividing something by itself, and when you do, you get 1. So keep in mind that you need this 1. So the correct answer then is B. So on this problem, we're going to do long division for this. We're going to divide by x minus 5. So now I'm going to think back to that warm-up problem. We're going to have an x minus 5 out front, and we want to divide that into x squared minus 2x minus 15. So what you're going to do, remember we have the 4 steps: divide, multiply, subtract, we're going to change the signs and add, bring down, and then you're going to go back up to divide. So when we divide though, we're going to be looking at this. Ask yourself, how many times does x go into x squared? Or what might even be better is ask yourself, what do I have to multiply the x by to get an x squared? Well, x. So that's the divide part. So next I multiply. I have to do x times x is x squared, and x times the minus 5 is minus 5x. Now I'm going to subtract, but we're going to change signs and add, because subtracting the same as adding the opposite. So I'm going to make this a minus, this a plus. So we have the x squareds cancel, and here I get a 3x. So that's that step. Now I bring down a minus 15. So then what do I multiply x by to get 3x? A 3, a positive 3. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. When I change the signs and add, I get 0. So this is a 0 remainder, which, by the way, tells me that x plus 3, oh, wait, well, that would be true too, but it tells me that x minus 5 is a factor of x squared minus 2x minus 15. I could have done a diamond problem here and factored this. I would have gotten x minus 5 and x plus 3. So that's going to be important later on. So go ahead, pause the video, try this problem. So you should have gotten A, which was x plus 2. So that's how we do that. Now, just keep in mind, if you were to see a problem that looks like this, you might look at that and say, oh, this is multiplying. No, it's not. Remember what a negative exponent means? It means reciprocal. So this means x squared minus x minus 7 over x minus 3 if we flip that into the denominator. Well, that means I'm dividing by x minus 3. So I would do that the same way we just did the preceding problem. However, I'm going to show you a different way called synthetic division. That's just a little easier than doing long division. So what you're going to do, you're going to take the opposite. So instead of a negative 3, instead of that minus 3, I'm going to do a positive 3. And what I'm going to use here is the coefficients of the dividend. The dividend is what would go inside. This is the dividend. This is the divisor. Okay, so the coefficient of the x squared is a 1. The negative x is a minus 1. The negative 7 we would put here. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bring down the first term. So that's a 1. So I'm going to bring down a 1. Then you're going to multiply and add. And you'll keep doing this multiply add until you run out of digits. So 3 times 1 is 3. So I put a 3 right here. Then I add negative 1 plus 3 is 2. Then I do 3 times 2 is 6. And then I add and I get negative 1. Now this last one is a remainder. So my answer, once you get to this point, you're going to take what you got, your resulting numbers, and I started with an x squared, so this right here, this 1, becomes a coefficient of my answer. So I get 1x, then this is going to be a constant, plus 2, and then this is my remainder, so I'm going to write that as minus 1 over what I divided by. Well, remember, I didn't really divide by a 3, I was dividing by an x minus 3. So this is my answer that I get. So if you need to watch that method again, you might want to go back over this and do that. You might want to rewind this and see the method to do that. So, or you can try this one. So remember, you are dividing by this x minus 2. So go ahead, pause the video, give it a try. So this is what you should have got when you did the synthetic division. By the way, synthetic, think about synthetic fibers like fabrics. It's fake, so we're doing fake division. So I used a positive 2 out front. The coefficients are 1, negative 2, and negative 1. Recorded those, brought the first number down, multiply, add, you get 0. Multiply, add, you get negative 1. There's nothing else to bring down, so this is my remainder. Remember, you drop the power down 1, so this is the coefficient of the x term, so I get 1x, or just x. And there is no constant. It's plus 0. I don't need to say plus 0. But then I had a remainder. I put that over what I divided by, which is not a 2. That was the fake division. I need to put that over x minus 2. And this would be my answer. So here are the steps, and I know that you don't have this. You can pause it if you want to read over this. These are the steps to synthetic division that I've already talked with you about. This is cut and paste from your textbook, so you could always look this up in your textbook as well. So here, let's try this problem. So I'm going to put a 2 out front, and this would be a 1 here. So I have a 1, a negative 4, a 6, and a negative 4. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if this had missed, like say there was no x squared term, we would need to record a 0 there for a place value holder. So bring the first number down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. No remainder, which means I'm not going to have that fraction part at the end. So this started with x cubed, so you drop it down 1 power, so this is going to be x squared. So I get 1x squared minus 2x plus 2 is my answer to that division problem, which tells me, since there was no remainder, x minus 2 is a factor of x cubed minus 4x squared plus 6x minus 4. You can go ahead and pause this, give it a try. So again, there's no remainder. You should have got x plus 7, and how strange that is because there would have been 2 possible answer choices, so that clearly was a oops. And then here's one last problem that I want to look at, and I picked this on purpose because it's skipping the cubed part. So notice that there's no cubed part on here. So we're going to put a 1 out front. And I'm starting with a 2. Because there's no cubed, I have to put a 0 for 0x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x. Well, I don't need the positive sign. And a minus 1. So there's my coefficients. Bring down the first number. It's a 2. Notice I leave a space. That's just so I have room for my work here. 1 times 2 is 2. Add, you get 2. multiply, you get 2, add, you get -1, multiply, you get -1, add, you get 1, multiply, you get 1, add, you get 0. So there's no remainder. So when I get my answer, I drop the power down 1 to get my first variable portion. So that's going to be x cubed. So I get 2x cubed plus 2x squared, because you're going to keep going down one descending order, minus 1x, or I'm just going to put an x, and then plus 1. And that would be my answer. So you just insert the coefficients back into your answer, and you have to drop the power down 1, and then you have to go in descending order of powers. Okay, next, this actually is going to require something different because we have a 2 out front. It's not just a y, so it's going to require a little bit different things. So that's going to be for tomorrow, and that will be in the next video.